Halloween night, 2017. A quiet neighborhood tucked into the Pennsylvania woods, the kind of place where nothing really happens. Rows of maple trees line the streets like skeleton fingers, their orange and red leaves glowing under porch lights. Kids were still out in costume, their laughter echoing down the sidewalks. Jack-o'-lanterns flickered on every stoop. It was the kind of Halloween that felt safe, familiar, almost boring. Brandon was 16 that year. Too old for trick-or-treating, too young to party. He and his two best friends, Kyle and James, had decided to spend the night doing what they always did, wandering the neighborhood, pulling light pranks, and pretending they were above it all. Deep down, they still loved Halloween. The costumes, the atmosphere, the thrill of feeling like the night could belong to something else. Something not quite real. They were dressed up just for fun. Brandon as some kind of generic vampire, Kyle with a plastic devil mask, and James in a black hoodie that he insisted made him look like the Grim Reaper. They had no plans, no destination. Just the streets and the cold October wind at their backs. But around 9 p.m., they noticed something strange. They had cut through Millstone Lane, a dead-end street with only 5 houses, 4 of them cozy and well-kept, and one that nobody talked about. That last one had been abandoned for years. Everyone in town called it the Gutierrez house, after the couple who vanished from it in 2008. No signs of struggle, no goodbye notes, just gone. Most people figured they skipped town. Others whispered about darker things. Either way, the house had been empty ever since. No one mowed the lawn. No one touched the mailbox. No one dared go inside. But that night, everything looked different. "Yo," James said, stopping in the middle of the street. "Is that light on?" Brandon narrowed his eyes. Sure enough, the front porch light was glowing yellow. Not only that, but 3 jack-o'-lanterns had been placed on the steps, fresh ones, not rotting, with sharp smiles carved clean through. Even weirder, on the old wooden bench by the door, there was a plastic bowl full of candy bars. Full-size ones, not the cheap kind. And next to it, taped to the wall in neat handwriting, was a sign that read, "Come inside. We have more treats." They stared at it in silence. The wind rustled the trees above them, and somewhere nearby, a kid screamed with laughter. But here, on Millstone Lane, it felt like a different world. "That wasn't there yesterday," Kyle said. "I walked my dog past here. No lights, no pumpkins, nothing." James stepped forward, curious. "Think it's a Halloween thing? Like one of those haunted house setups?" "Dude," Brandon said slowly, "this place hasn't had power in years." They crept closer, crunching leaves under their shoes. The front door was slightly open, just a crack. Enough to see warm light spilling from inside. Not flickering like candles, steady, like working bulbs. James pointed to the sign again. "Seriously, it says to come in." Brandon looked at Kyle. "This feels like a trap," Kyle shrugged. "So we leave." But none of them moved. That's the thing about curiosity, it doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it pulls you forward one step at a time. And when you're 16, with adrenaline in your veins and your friends around you, fear doesn't always win. "I'm just gonna look," James said, his hand on the door. "If it's a prank, we'll laugh and leave." Brandon hesitated, but followed. Kyle rolled his eyes and came in behind them. The door creaked open fully, and they stepped inside. Right away, the air changed. The warmth from outside vanished like a sucked breath. It was freezing, like they'd walked into a refrigerator. The hallway stretched ahead of them, dimly lit. On a small table was another candy bowl, more full-size bars, and another note, same handwriting. Take some. Keep going. The three boys stood in silence. Somewhere above them, something creaked out. Brandon felt it deep in his chest, like a warning. Like a part of him was yelling to get out while he still could. But the door slowly clicked shut behind them. They didn't close it. Asterisk. The moment they crossed the threshold, the air felt wrong. Not just cold dead. It wrapped around them like a damp blanket, clinging to their skin, thick and heavy in their lungs. Brandon blinked as his eyes adjusted to the dim yellow glow from the ceiling fixture above. The bulb buzzed faintly, casting strange shadows. Along the hallway walls, Kyle tried to make a joke, but his voice was low. "What is this place? Time capsule?" Brandon didn't answer. He was staring at the table just a few steps ahead. It held another bowl of candy perfectly arranged like a display in a store. Beside it, another note in the same neat cursive. Take some. Keep going. James reached out, grabbed a Snickers, and gave a tight smile. "Okay, that's weird, but kind of cool. Whoever set this up went all out." "Yeah," Brandon said. "But who's living here?" This place was supposed to be empty. That question hung in the air. None of them had an answer. The floor creaked beneath them as they moved deeper inside. The hallway led into an old living room lit only by a standing lamp in the corner. Cobwebs clung to the ceiling. The curtains were drawn tight, like the house didn't want anyone looking in or out. Everything inside looked frozen in time. The furniture dusty, floral, mismatched, hadn't been touched in years. The rocking chair near the window was still, but something about it felt expectant. Like it was waiting for someone. And then there were the photographs, lining the walls. On shelves and atop the fireplace mantel were dozens of family pictures. Some in frames, some just tucked behind dusty candles and old figurines. But every single one had the faces scratched out, violently, deep, jagged cuts across the eyes, mouths, entire heads like someone had taken a knife to every memory. Kyle reached out to pick up a frame. "Dude, don't touch it," Brandon said quickly. His voice came out sharper than he meant it to. Kyle backed off. James tried to lighten the mood. "Okay, maybe they're just super into Halloween. Some people decorate hardcore." "Right," Brandon said, not believing it for a second. Then they heard it clicked out a soft sound. From upstairs all three boys froze. "You guys heard that, right?" Kyle whispered. Brandon nodded slowly, his stomach twisting. He glanced up the staircase. The top of the stairs disappeared into shadow. No movement. No footsteps. Just silence. Probably just pipes, James offered, though he sounded like he was trying to convince himself more than anyone else. And then came a second sound, this one different. A slow, dragging noise, like something being pulled across. A wooden floor. It started directly above them and moved. Whatever it was, it shifted across the ceiling, slow and steady, following the length of the hallway. And then stopped. No one said a word. Brandon could hear his own heartbeat in his ears. James swallowed hard. "Okay, this place is creeping me out now. I'm gonna open the front door and we can just go." He turned around and froze. The door was shut. Brandon's eyes widened. "Did you close that?" James shook his head, stepping over and grabbing the handle. He twisted. Nothing. Lock. Double quotes. What the hell? Kyle muttered. There wasn't even a lock on that when we came in. James yanked harder. The door didn't budge. Let's find the back exit, Brandon said quickly. Through the kitchen. They moved in a group now, shoulder to shoulder, not saying much. The deeper they went, the worse it got. The air seemed thicker in the kitchen, like the smell of something sweet had rotted. The fridge was buzzing, but it looked ancient, like it hadn't worked in years. A trail of old stains ran across the linoleum floor, like something had been dragged from one room to another. They didn't follow it. Kyle opened a drawer and pulled out a rusted knife. We break a window if we have to. James peeked out a curtained window over the sink. There's nothing outside. It's just black. No street lights? Brandon asked. James shook his head. Know anything? For a moment, it felt like the house wasn't in the neighborhood anymore. Then the lights flickered. Once. Twice. Darkness. Total. They stood still in the pitch black. Every breath, every heartbeat felt loud. Then the stairs creaked again. One slow step. Then another. Something was coming down. They couldn't see it, couldn't hear breathing. Just those deliberate echoing steps. Brandon reached for his phone. No signal. No bars. No WI-feed. And then, like something out of a nightmare, they heard it. A whisper. Not a voice they recognized. Not words they could understand. But it was saying something. Just not to them. To the house. The lights were gone. So was any sense of control. Brandon stood frozen in the blackness of the kitchen, eyes wide, heart pounding like a war drum in his chest. He strained to hear past the silence, past the blood in his ears. Just seconds ago, the hallway behind them had been dimly lit. Now it was gone, swallowed in a darkness so thick it felt alive. Then came the sound again. Thump. A deliberate footstep on the stairs. Followed by another. Slow. Heavy. Uneven. It wasn't one of them. It wasn't pretending anymore. Guys, Brandon whispered, barely able to speak. James fumbled with his phone, trying to turn on the flashlight. Nothing. His screen was black, even though it had been fully charged an hour ago. Kyle hissed. I swear something's coming down the stairs. They didn't run yet. They should have. But fear can do strange things. It makes you freeze. Makes you wait for just one more clue. One more reason to really panic. That reason came next. The lights snapped back on. Just for a second, and standing at the base of the stairs was a girl. Small? Maybe 7 or 8 years old. Her long dark hair was matted to her face. She wore an old-fashioned nightgown, stained and torn. Her arms hung loosely at her sides, like she didn't quite know how to move them. But her face, her eyes were too wide, pitched inky black from corner to corner. Her mouth hung open like she was mid-scream, but no sound came out. She wasn't breathing, and she was pointing directly at Brandon. The lights blinked again, and she vanished. Gone. Brandon gasped and stumbled backward into the counter. Did? You see that? I saw her, Kyle blurted out, gripping the rusty knife tighter. James backed into the hallway, shaking. We need to get out, now. Break a window. I don't care if we bleed. But as they turned to escape, something was wrong. The hallway had changed. What used to be a short hallway back to the front door now stretched impossibly far. It looked like it went on for 100 feet, lined with the same ugly wallpaper repeating over and over again. And at the end was the rocking chair. It hadn't been there before, and it was rocking back and forth, back and forth. Brandon's breath caught in his throat. This isn't real. This house is doing something. No, James said quietly. It's not the house. They stared at him. It's her. That's when they heard the sound, a new one. From the end of the long hallway, something began crawling, not walking. Running on all fours. It was fast, too fast, and they couldn't see it clearly. Just flashes of pale limbs, nails scraping wood. Joints bending the wrong way. It was coming straight for them. Go! Brandon yelled. They bolted into the living room. Kyle slammed the knife against the nearest window. The blade snapped off, useless. James grabbed a floor lamp and threw it through the glass. It cracked, spiderwebbed, then finally shattered with a second hit. Out, go! They climbed through the broken pane, arms scraping on glass, legs stumbling across the dead lawn outside. The air hit them like a slap, cold, crisp, real. But when they turned around, the house was dark, completely, no porch light, no pumpkins, no glowing lamp in the living room, just empty windows staring back at them like eyes. The girl was gone. It was like the house had swallowed itself back into silence. None of them spoke as they ran. Not until they were halfway down the block, out of breath, wide-eyed and shaking. James broke the silence first. We didn't imagine that. Tell me we didn't imagine that. No one imagined anything, Brandon said, holding his arm. There was a long, shallow cut from the window glass. He barely felt it. Kyle was still holding the broken knife hilt. His hands were shaking. That girl, she saw us. I think she was already down here. I think she's always down here. They got home just after 10 p.m. James's mom screamed when she saw the blood and called the police. The boys didn't say much, just that they'd gone into the old Gutierrez house and someone had chased them out. They left out the parts no one would believe. The cops went to investigate. Half an hour later, they reported back. No signs of entry. No candy. No furniture. No power. Place has been empty for years, one officer said, like he was reading from a script. If you saw anything, maybe it was a Halloween setup or a squatter. But none of them believed that. And later that night, as Brandon lay in bed, phone on his nightstand, he looked over at the one photo he'd swiped from the house. Something he didn't remember grabbing in the panic. It was the girl, sitting in the rocking chair. Smiling. Only now her eyes had been scratched out. Brandon didn't sleep that night. He stared at the photo on his nightstand, an old, faded picture of the girl in the rocking chair. He had no memory of grabbing it in the chaos, but somehow it was in his hoodie pocket when he got home. It looked like it had been taken decades ago, black and white. The corners curled and yellowed. The girl looked about 7, her hair long, her hands resting neatly on her lap. But what struck Brandon most was that she was smiling in this version. Not the hollow stare, not the silent scream from inside the house. And yet something was off. He reached for the photo again. There, just below her chair, was something he hadn't noticed before, a shadow. Not hers. It was tall or wrong. Like someone or something had been standing just outside the frame when the photo was taken. By the next morning, he felt like he was losing his mind. Kyle and James weren't answering his texts. His phone glitched. All day, random static bursts. Battery draining faster than normal. At one point, when he opened his photo gallery, every single picture was gone, replaced by a single black square. Just black. Like the inside of the house. He called James around. Noon, his voice was off, shaky. "I'm not talking about it," James said. "I'm serious, man. Just forget it. Don't even think about it." Brandon tried Kyle next, straight to voicemail. He finally messaged, "We need to meet. This isn't over." An hour later, Kyle replied with just one sentence. "Something followed me home." Brandon's blood went cold. That night, he couldn't take it anymore. He pulled the photo from the drawer and stared at it again. This time, something was different. The girl's smile was gone completely. Her lips were sealed shut. Brandon backed away, shaking. His hand was trembling so hard he dropped the picture. When he bent to pick it up, the light in his room flickered, and then he heard it. From downstairs. The floorboards. Creaking. Slow. Heavy. Familiar. He froze. No one else was home. His parents were at a weekend getaway. The house was locked. But now, someone was walking through it. He moved quietly, grabbed the baseball bat under his bed, and crept into the hallway. Silence. Then click. The front door opened. Not slammed. Not kicked in. Open. Like whoever or whatever was coming in had a key. Brandon didn't wait. He sprinted to his bedroom, slammed the door, and locked it. He fumbled for his phone, called 911. No signal. Again. Then came the knock. Tap. Not. At the door. At the window. He turned slowly. There, outside his second-floor window, was the girl. Hovering. Her face just inches from the glass. Not angry. Not sad. Just watching. Brandon dropped the phone. It hit the floor with a thud. He didn't scream. He COULDN single quotes T. She raised her hand and pressed her fingers against the glass. He backed away until he hit the far wall, sliding down, heart crashing. In his chest. And then the window fogged up. And she wrote something in the condensation with her finger. 2 words. "Let me in." Brandon passed out. When he woke up, the room was empty. Daylight. Everything normal. No broken glass. No signs of a break-in. No girl. Just the photo. Still on the floor. He picked it up one last time, and there she was in the same chair, but now the background had changed. It was no longer the old living room. It was his room. The rocking chair was in the corner. His bedsheets behind her. His lamp turned off, and she was smiling again. As if she'd never left. That's when he realized the house doesn't trap you. When you go inside. It waits. It finds the ones it wants. Then it brings itself to you. Later. That week, Kyle's house burned down in the middle of the night. The cause was electrical, but Brandon knew better. No one found Kyle's body. James left town. No goodbye. His number disconnected. His Instagram wiped clean. Brandon never spoke to anyone about it again. But he never threw away the photo. He tried twice, but every time it came back. Once in his mailbox. Once under his pillow. Now it lives in his closet. Wrapped in a box. Buried under clothes. He doesn't look at it anymore. But sometimes, when the lights flicker and the air in the room shifts, he swears he can hear it call on, rocking. Back and forth, waiting.